Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode in the Devil May Cry boss ranking series. See, I'm not abandoning this series. We're back in the world of DMC, though sadly not out of the hell of bad bosses yet. Last episode we covered 10 of the lamest, most frustrating, or just straight up terrible bosses in the franchise, and I'd argue in all of gaming. And they were all from Devil May Cry 2. Huh, what do you know. Today, let's see if we can fill some dark souls with light and find some angels among the demons. Not actual angels, mind you, we don't want any of him running around. I just want to clear something else up. In DMC 2, you may notice me getting my ass kicked a lot in the footage. Well, not dying, but being slapped around. Well, this genius decided to try fight with melee for a lot of the game's bosses because that was a lot more exciting than just shoot to kill. So blame it on my stubbornness and not indicative of the boss difficulty. Either way, let's get started with the meaning of life, boss number 42. Don't expect anything good yet, we are still in the bottom half of the list.
That's just a piece of crap.
Good to see some Japanese representation in this heavily American game. However, I would have been far more on board with a cameo from Natsu rather than this disgusting tentacle freak. It's one of the most frustrating bosses in the game, but I have to give it credit for its difficulty and mechanics. This boss is one of the few in the game that you can't just demolish by devil trigger guns. You need to damage the tentacles in order to get close to the body, and then you smack it until it's dead. But the tentacles will recover fairly quickly, and your window of opportunity really isn't that big. While you do this, the tentacles will be doing their damnedest to kill you, and they do a pretty good job. Seeing as this is an early boss in the game, you might not be used to the shitty controls yet. It's a pretty big wake-up call for a new player, seeing as you could sleep through the rest of the game up to this point, and most of the game after. So it caught me off guard, and I actually got quite close to dying. I did use a health item early in the fight, I'll admit, but for the other 75% of its health bar, I barely worried. So once you learn its mechanics, it's really not too bad. However, I have to give it slight credit for being one of the only Devil May Cry 2 bosses that I actually have to try on. Oh hey, building guy! I remember you from the opening cutscene. You were decently cool then, and you're honestly not that bad. I mean, for Devil May Cry 2 standards. Well, the first phase just involves even more shoot to kill. God, I hate that about this game so much. But the attacks require some dodging at least. I mean, that's like most attacks, but these attacks require even more dodging, so you know, it's extra good. The second phase lets you actually go to town on it with melee if you want to take that option, though shoot to kill is just as viable. Just be careful though, that open mouth is not a weak spot.
It's a trap!
His mouth lasers will absolutely destroy you, and I'll admit, I died to him. However, I revived against my will with a gold orb I happened to have on me, so I could finish the fight pretty easily once I learned the patterns, similar to Jokatgulm. For Devil May Cry 2 standards, this guy really isn't that bad, even if his damage is a little bit bullshit, and I'm always a fan of an impressive spectacle, which a building-sized demon certainly is. Holy shit, a boss that isn't from Devil May Cry 2? What in the name of Sparta? Considering the boss in question, that's actually a pretty accurate statement. From one blob to another, we have Arkham, one of the two main villains from Devil May Cry 3. This guy is a true monster. He killed his own wife, manipulated Virgil and Dante, and was willing to sacrifice his own daughter, as well as thousands of innocent people, just to attain the ultimate power of Sparta. What a dick. Truly, fighting this guy should be a satisfying battle of kicking his teeth in, right? Wrong. He does get the Devil Sword Sparta, and he obtains the power, but instead of turning into an awesome demonic knight like you do at the end of Devil May Cry 1, he transforms into a massive blob monster. Now, when you look at this thing, do you think this will be a good boss? No? Exactly. All he does is blind swipes that have scarily high accuracy considering he has no eyes, and occasionally he shoots something at you that does way too much damage. He also likes to run away and summon ridiculous amounts of demon dolphins to kill you, and he doesn't come back until they're all mostly dead. It's way too hard, that's the main reason I dislike him so much. However, halfway through the fight, yes baby! Dante and Virgil back to back. The Sons of Sparta. However, it's arguably harder with him here. I mean, you can't use Devil Trigger to regen your health and pump your damage up, and you don't get to use your selected style. Instead, the style button just teleports Virgil to you. While he does make the fight easier, considering he attacks at the same time you do, so basically double damage, the fact that he cuts out two of your most useful tools, Styles and Devil Trigger, makes his presence potentially more of a hindrance than a benefit if I'm honest. The only redeeming factor about this guy is the story significance and the fact that Virgil gets to fight alongside you.
Jackpot. Not very classy for someone's dying words.
But even that's a negative because it robs you of Devil Trigger in your styles, as I mentioned earlier. Seriously, can we just get one good thing about Arkham? Someone send Arkham back to an asylum. We can't risk him wandering around this city. If only during his origins he was killed by a knight. Wait, what? 39.5? What are you doing, MattTGM? See, I had this list all made up. I had this episode fully scripted, and I was scrolling down the list for the next episode, and then I realized something. I forgot an entire boss battle. I forgot to list Geryon. Hence why I've bumped this guy to 39.5, and Geryon has been officially added to the list. Otherwise, this would now be all 53 Devil May Cry bosses, and 52 is a much better number than 53. Plus I'd have to restructure the entire list up till this point, just by changing some numbers up, and that's way too much effort. Either way, the Reaper, the boss that is now at 39.5, commits the same sin as the Infested Tank from back at the worst boss ever, sharing the spot with Infested Chopper. It's a boss that becomes a standard enemy later in the game. Want to know the difference? Fighting these things can actually be enjoyable, and engaging. You actually have to move. Look at me moving. This fight's nothing special. It has a decent range of attacks and you can use it as a tool to learn strike parrying in Devil May Cry 3, but with how common it becomes later in the game, he can't go any higher. Just be thankful you made the list at all, pal. Ooh, this guy. Oh, this guy was so close to being high up on the list. Well, maybe in the top quarter of the bottom half at least. Number 26 to 29, somewhere in that range. See, Argosax has two phases. Argosax the Chaos and the Despair Embodied. See, the Despair Embodied is the closest this game gets to a good boss fight. He's relatively challenging, he has decent attacks, he looks cool, there's no glitches, or at least none that I experienced. You can actually hit him with sword combat, he actually requires you to try beat him. On its own, it's a good fight, and he'd likely make it into at least the top 30. I genuinely have fun with him. However, you have to get through Argosax the Chaos to get to the Despair Embodied, and he's so much worse. It's a massive conglomerate of about 6 of the game's bosses, plus Griffin from the first game, each with their own attacks. You'll have experienced them all before, but here they are... Damn, they are certainly amped up to final boss level. You have to circle around and shoot each head to death while dodging their moves, hitting them with melee is a near impossibility. The only problem is that his attacks are crazy powerful, and his health is easily the biggest in the game. Look how many fucking bars he has. Even the notoriously powerful Devil Trigger guns aren't enough to save you from boredom here. Some of the hits are easy, just stand out of their range and spam guns, but some require difficult dodges and they can chip your health bar down to nothing pretty quickly, like Building Guy or Griffin. It really sucks, I don't enjoy this part at all. I'm really glad that after you get past the first phase, you'll respawn at the second phase if you die to the Despair Embodied. If you didn't, this thing would be down at the bottom with Infested Chopper for being straight up bullshit. So, while the second phase may be the peak of Devil May Cry 2, the first phase drags it down to number 38 on the list.
What a lovely houseplant.
My beloved Devil May Cry 5 is making an appearance in the bottom half of the list. Oh boy. But considering this literal houseplant is higher than both a Deadly Sorcerer and a Demon King, I'd say I'm hardly giving it a bad rap. The attacks of the Qliphoth Roots are honestly really basic and they can all be dodged pretty easily, but I'm liable to still get hit here and there. And on Hell in Hell mode, that one hit makes all the difference. It really makes all the difference. It's basic as all hell and not even that great of a tutorial boss. I mean, it teaches you how to dodge and how to hit, and that's about it. But the lack of frustration and fun I get from dominating this literal roadblock elevates it higher than all the other bosses so far. I wonder how Devil May Cry 2 feels knowing that the tutorial boss of Devil May Cry 5, a literal houseplant, is higher than both of its end bosses. That must just be embarrassing. Devil May Cry 2 is still going on the list, who would have thought? And we now come to Bolverk. Previously praised by me as one of the only decent bosses in the game back in my collab with Spartan Guy. He's a night type fight, that's good, with some moves that he uses to gank you. That's not so good. Admittedly, they die pretty easily to your attacks if you can actually hit them. They do jump around quite a lot. And then it's just you and Bolverk. To be honest, there's really not too much I can say about this man. He's just a tolerable night fight in a less than tolerable game. Wow, this section was quick. Almost as quick as it is to kill him with devil trigger guns. Shoot to kill. And here we go, Devil May Cry 1 makes its debut on the list. It should be indicative of the average Devil May Cry 1 boss quality that their lowest ranking boss is this high up on the list, but that's more thanks to the badness of everything else rather than this guy's own merits. Nightmare is a frustrating fight, that's the easiest way to sum it up for me. As the third blob boss we've had in this episode so far, unlike the other two, he incorporates puzzle elements into his battle, rather than just more shoot to kill or damage sponging. You have to flick one of 4 switches around the arena to make him vulnerable, and then you can attack his crystal ball weak spot. He's fairly tanky, so it takes a few times of hitting the switches, and he doesn't make it easy for you. He shoots all kinds of range attacks, and he has this stupid move which sucks you down into another realm. And then he summons one of the other bosses you've fought in the game, Phantom or Griffin, from what I've experienced, to beat you up. Admittedly, if you kill that enemy, Nightmare takes a lot of damage to his health, but it can still be a tough fight, especially seeing as this fight lasts for quite a while, meaning it's just another layer to the endurance battle. Now, this boss is what I'll use to explain the trend of Devil May Cry 1 bosses. Rather than having 12 unique fights, they have the same 4 bosses that you fight multiple times throughout the game. However, each time they get different attacks, they have more health, they just get more difficult. It's honestly a pretty cool idea to skill check you as you progress on your way to Mundus. Anyways, in the final fight you have with him, fight number 3, Trish decides to join the party and shoot you in the butt with lightning, encouraging you to dominate Nightmare as quickly as possible before you get overwhelmed with everything you have to dodge. I've lost to this final phase once and beaten her once. Trish honestly doesn't affect the battle too much from what I've experienced. She just fires more obstacles you have to dodge, and it's not like you haven't been dodging all battle. Or you can just tank it with DT and go ham for game. Sadly, despite all that I've said in favour of this boss, which isn't really that much, I don't find him that enjoyable. All you really do is smack an orb and dodge magic, and that isn't all that fun for me in my stylish sword game. Sure, the story significance and Trish's betrayal of Dante makes it memorable, as is Dante's little speech afterwards, but that's only for the third fight, so the other two are kinda just a time waster for me. For that reason, it lands down here. Sorry buddy. If only you had a revamped version about 19 years later, significantly improved. But you know, that's just a stupid fantasy. Silly me in my dreams. This boss's low placement is largely due to frustration caused, apparently, by my own stupidity. These orbs are extra weak to Agni and Rudra, from what I've heard, which I didn't know at the time, and therefore I didn't use them in the boss battle. Hence, I found this guy really annoying. Dodging enemies that barely stagger while running from one side of the arena to the other just to smack some more orbs which shoot lasers at you kinda sucks, and the damage done by said lasers, and the enemies, is nothing to sneeze at. This really isn't a good case of basic enemies in a boss battle. They do drag it down because there's so many of them and they hit hard and you can barely kill them yourself, but they need to be there, or this boss will just be a high stakes game of dodge the laser, kinda like the building guy from earlier, which really isn't that special of an encounter. At least it ends with a cool ending cutscene by Dante killing the entire massive Leviathan, not just these stupid orbs inside of him. Couldn't we just do that part ourselves next time? So, the heck is this thing supposed to be? This demon centipede flying worm thing just kinda comes out of nowhere, some hole in the wall while you're exploring the Temene Gru. Is it an infestation? Are there more of these things? I hope not, because this fight isn't good enough to warrant repeating. Except that's exactly what Devil May Cry 3 makes you do in the boss rush level. That was so fun. Anyway, onto the fight. This guy, Gigapede, flies from hole to hole in the walls while shooting you with pink or blue balls. You can actually smack the pink balls back at him for really good damage, but I suck at the timing of them, so there's that. Get good, I suppose. The difficulty and fun factor of this boss really depends on how well you can jump on top of him to hit him easily. With air hike, it's easy as, and I find the boss pretty fun. But without it, which you probably won't have it at the start of the game, this fight can be a tad frustrating. The arena is well designed to let you jump on top of him without air hike, but I still prefer having it the easy way, especially after being able to abuse air hike in DMC2 right from the start. Oh well, at least when you fight him in the boss rush, it's a much more enjoyable time. In all honesty, the thing that most holds Furiatorus back is the fact that he's in Devil May Cry 2. If he was in a good Devil May Cry game, like any of the other ones, he'd likely be a top 30 boss. Why is that? Well, you know everything I said about the Despair Embodied? It applies here. He attacks with decent tells, his damage is enough to make the fight engaging without being bullshit, his design is pretty cool, his entrance is snappy on behalf of Arius. Huh? See what I did there? Huh? And the variety of attacks is enough to keep you on your toes. I remember getting tossed around by this guy quite a lot, so I'm not even too sure how I pulled off the win on the first time round. Again, challenge in Devil May Cry 2. Who would have seen that coming? But it's an engaging challenge, not a bullshit one like Argosax the Chaos. I found a good way to avoid most of his attacks is to stay in the air with air hike and shoot a lot, especially when he does his charge, because the Devil May Cry 2 dodge, while I really don't mind it, isn't enough to save you from that most of the time. He has quite a large hitbox. Makes sense, he's a big boy. He can attack you from range, he can attack you close up. Really, you can't afford to drop your guard around this guy. So, while Devil May Cry 2 overall is a disappointment of a game, as I've discussed before on Spartan Guy's channel, and they really make up a lot of the worst bosses in the game, at least their lineup goes out on a relatively high point. Wait a minute, you look kinda familiar. For my thoughts on the actual Phantom boss, wait till he pops up a lot later in the list. Well, at least here he's a fight of higher quality. This fight carries on the tradition of Devil May Cry 1 bosses appearing multiple times. Sadly, I don't remember too much about Phantom or how he evolves throughout the fight. He's a spider, I don't like spiders, no wonder I forgot a lot about him. Anyway, this is a solid introduction to DMC bosses, seeing as he is the first one in the entire series if you play them chronologically in the time they came out. His attacks all have notable tells, especially the glowing floor hinting at the lava pillars, so that's a good mark for difficulty points, giving you fair time to get out of the way. The camera angle is also good. I wasn't a fan of the static camera angle of the first game after coming from Devil May Cry 5 and its free control, but here it works just fine. You can keep your eye on Phantom at all times. The camera doesn't contribute to the difficulty here. The story behind this fight is nothing notable, I mean he's just another demon, but the little rivalry that he and Dante developed throughout is pretty cool. At least as some of Dante's first ever cocky one-liners.
What a big surprise. I hope for your sake you got something inside that big body of yours.
You fight him in a room, then he chases you in a corridor later in the game, and then you finally get to take him down in a courtyard. There's the 3 fights. Aside from some Devil May Cry PS2 clunk, he's a pretty strong introduction to the series bosses, and a pretty solid fight overall. But sadly, he's just an average boss by my standards. He's not special enough to get any higher up on the list today. DMC5 is back, baby, with a natural evolution from the houseplant, the worm. Human. Demon. Bitch. Whatever, it's not great. Sure, it's above 20 other bosses on the list, but that's mainly because it's fun to fight with V, not because the boss itself is that great. Basically, he sends 3 giant attacking worm things after you, which barely do anything notable besides swipes and charges, and once you kill a number of them, he comes down to play personally. Now, Nidhogg himself actually attacks pretty fiercely. He's fast, he's ferocious, he does decent damage, so it's important to keep Griffin alive for more reliable double jump dodging. He's the most important of your familiars in this case. If you kill all of the worms, Nidhogg will be stunned for a while, giving you a chance to summon Nightmare, DG up your familiars, and decimate his health bar. So it pays to focus on the tentacles before more can spawn in, instead of trying to get chip damage in on Nidhogg himself. The taunts made by V and Griffin throughout the fight add some extra humour, which I always appreciate in my bosses, as to their memorability. Overall, Nidhogg is honestly pretty good, especially for the standards of today's list, but that's mainly because V is fun to play, the boss works on a mechanical level unlike a lot of the Devil May Cry 2 trash, Devil May Cry 5 is just that goddamn fun to play all the time, and he's not from Devil May Cry 2. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. Imagine that being your strongest suit, that you're not from the worst game in the series.
Jester's gonna spank you, but spank you on the bar.
So, one of the additions in Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition was this Joker wannabe popping up in 3 different boss fights throughout the game. What a douche, am I right? At least it isn't that bad of a time. For context, Chester is actually Arkham, but cosplaying, so he's trying to slow you down on your quest in order to weaken you so he can steal the power for himself. This means that the final Jester fight can't really be canon considering he's already got the power at that point, but whatever, it's from a special edition anyway, nothing there is canon. Basically, he starts off by Ultra Instincting every attack you throw at him with melee. So you take a page from Devil May Cry 2 and shoot to kill, except he dodges that too. Thankfully, Arkham skipped cardio, so he tires out pretty easily, and then you can hit him with melee for a few seconds. After that, he'll teleport to the middle of the arena and summon a shield around him. You can still hit him, it just really won't hurt him that much, and while you're doing that, he's summoning one of 3 different energy ball attacks to hit you, all while making creepy comments throughout. Ugh, new man. In addition to the other 2 fights with him, after the first one is a big ball he rides on in the second half of the battle, when you get his health down to about half. The ball spits balls at you, it blows up with time, and it elevates Jester out of the range of your basic sword attacks, meaning you have to attack with air moves, and there aren't many of those in DMC3, especially not with Rebellion. So, the guy's a pretty average fight if I'm honest, but for the standards of Devil May Cry so far, he's somehow made it this close to the top half. If anything, the humour this guy brings to the fight, even if he is a creepy bitch, elevates him above the other bosses so far on the list. Who would have thought that Arkham is a better fight when he's dressing up as a creep and not when he's wielding the power of a legendary demon knight? What a loser.
Excuse me?
We're bringing in the next entry with a... Ooh, hello ladies. How you doing? Oh, fuck! I thought we were getting some sweet fan service, but nope, we got attacked by a Frenchman. With one hell of a tongue. That's fine. It's totally awesome. At least this fight is pretty good for the standards of the bosses so far. Also, we now have a fight from every single Devil May Cry game on the list. Is the fact that Devil May Cry 4 only appeared on the list just now indicative of how good the bosses will be overall? Well, let's start by examining this, in my opinion the worst of their fights, more in depth. It starts off with 2 lit up girls and you have to fight them. They don't really do that much honestly, so you can just wail on them while dodging from left to right. After that, the frog itself will leap at you, and you really want to dodge that move, it hurts a lot. After that, the tussle begins. The boss has pretty good attacks overall, a neat balance of ranged and melee, but he does suffer from a noticeable lack of speed. As either Dante or Nero, you can dance around every attack with regular dodges, air hikes and enemy steps, or trickster style with Dante. This means he's one of the easier bosses in the game, but it's still very enjoyable. His attacks are all fair and balanced, and his fairly big health bar makes him a good playground for stylish combos and experimentation. Real quick, a unique feature of the bosses that you can fight as Nero in Devil May Cry 4 and most of them in Devil May Cry 5 is unique buster animations that you can do to them while stunned. They do a ton of damage and they look pretty flashy. The attacks that Nero does on this toad are pretty damn cool and he gets extra style points for that alone. Overall, it's a pretty good fight for a giant frog. I bet many of you weren't expecting this boss so high up on the list. From what I can tell, it's fairly disliked throughout the community. Honestly, I wasn't expecting to rank it this high either, but I've always had a trend for being quirky with my boss rankings. Now, this thing may not be the most engaging battle on the list, far from it, even compared to what we've already had, but the sheer scale and spectacle gobsmacked me the first time I fought it. I was really excited. I mean, bosses in God of War like Poseidon or Kronos are some of my favourites of all time, and this giant enemy brings a similar sense of spectacle which naturally gets me hyped every time I go to fight him. Admittedly, it's nowhere near as good as Poseidon or Kronos, but I still like it. After Sanctus absorbs Nero, Kyrie, and the Devil Sword Sparda, this giant statue comes to life and starts raising hell. Literally. Naturally, Dante ain't okay with that, so we're gonna fight it. Now, we've seen big statue fights before in gaming, so how will we take this one on? By hitting the weak points until it dies. How revolutionary. Admittedly, I am underselling that a little bit, and I do find it a fairly good time. You run around several floating platforms that surround the Saviour, and that gives you windows to attack several blue orbs throughout his body which damage him. Occasionally you have to knock him down with the laser gun, or his body parts will just come by it naturally. Either way, you'll hit orbs on his arms, legs, head, and his back. You can use guns for this from range if you feel like taking forever, but the real way to do it is to get up close and use Yamato with Dante and the Darkslayer style. The Judgment Cut ability is really how you're meant to do it. It breaks the orbs easily, and you look cool doing it. However, the Saviour ain't gonna take this lion down. Or floating, I suppose. The statue attacks you with various crushing attacks, leg swings, projectiles, and eventually it uses a giant fucking laser beam that is really easy to avoid, but incredibly deadly if you don't. Trust me, I've been hit by it. I took too slow and I was curious to see just how much it hurt. God damn, it does not disappoint. Plus, there's a few standard enemies lying around the arena, but the Savior's attacks will normally kill them too, so don't worry about them. After enough of the orb breaking, you end up having to attack one big orb on his chest, which is when his health bar is revealed. This is where the fight can suffer a little. This part takes a while, especially as you can normally only hit it from range. It's best to just jump back and forth from this one middle platform I found and hope that he does this one attack where he floats up very close to you, letting you hit his chest orb directly. Do this for about 5 to 6 times, at least on normal mode, and you should have him down. Overall, this fight is nothing special, but the spectacle from it gets me excited enough to gloss over its faults enough to land it almost in the top half of the list. Oof, it's the boss that I literally forgot. Usually that would mean it was pretty bad, but no, Geryon is a good fight. He starts off like one of my least favourite Dark Souls 2 bosses, Executioner's Chariot, by charging towards you on a narrow straight path before teleporting back to the end and then doing it again. Unlike Dark Souls 2, this isn't that bad. You have to shoot him a lot when he charges towards you, air hike over him when he's about to hit you, and then attack the carriage using the regular triangle rebellion air attack. That was a bit of a mouthful. Or just use Helmbreaker, because I'm pretty sure that's its name, to damage him right as he goes past. After enough of this, the two of you fall down into arena and the real fight begins. Geryon runs around and tries to run you over still, but now he summons these orbs around the place that if you touch them will slow down time for you, leaving you as a sitting duck for his attacks. Occasionally he'll also fire magic projectiles at you, but these really aren't too big of a worry. Trickster style avoids them with no problems. After a few charges, he'll stay still for a while, occasionally giving off an AoE attack, letting you get your hits in. If you hit him enough to stun him, Geryon will fall over, and you have your chance to really do some damage. The balance between giving you openings to attack in periods where you can't do anything but dodge is a hard balance for many boss fights to hit, often resulting in them being too easy, or being too frustrating. However, Geryon does this just fine. He's not stunned enough to be a pushover, and he's not charging around invincibly enough to be frustrating. Also, as a reward for killing him, you get the slick as hell Quicksilver style, and that's a massive plus in my book. Thanks to all these factors, I have full confidence in proclaiming Geryon a good boss, and that gives us a very good platform to kick off into the top half of the list in the next video. I'm glad I remembered you, buddy. Well everyone, I hope you all enjoyed part 2 of my boss ranking series, 1 month later. We've started really making our way through the Devil May Cry bosses, and we've started to see some pretty fun fights already, so things will only get better from here. I want to thank you all for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe so you don't miss the next part of the series or any of the other great content coming up on my channel in the near future. The next video in this series will likely be the longest one yet, seeing as it's full of 15 fights that I enjoy, so I'll likely be going relatively high depth into each one, but I'll try to get it out by next month regardless. The next video I intend to focus on is the Fairy Tail arc ranking number 15, and then my thoughts on Devil May Cry 1. After that, full steam ahead on part 3 of this series. Until then, have a good day, and I'll see you all in the next video.